And we're live.
And we are live. Boom, boom, boom. How about that? Once John gets his camera all set up, we'll bring him into the stream as well. So, whoa. Didn't see that coming. Okay. So, lots to talk about.
Tons.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, Jay, about how long before the match took place that we decided to do this.
It was a pretty good length of time, I think. I'll scroll back real quick through Instagram and see when I see
Yeah,
the
I
first.
don't.
Oh, that's going to take a long time given how much we talked
Yeah,
over and
yeah,
after.
yeah. I don't know that you might be here till tomorrow scrolling through your Instagram.
It was at least a couple of months.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
I think
Because I
we
know at one
discussed it.
point. Go ahead.
It might have been around March. We kind of pulled the trigger. I think we discussed it maybe beforehand, and then as the winter match series at Greater Pittsburgh kind of wound through, I was able to find some time to talk to Bill and get him on board, and then that would have been again toward the end of winter. At that point, we were pretty much full steam ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I remember. I wasn't sure at first because I was going to be having surgery on my knee, and then I knew I was going to have another procedure. So it was a while back, but at the same time, I know that Greater Pittsburgh Gun Club was going through some changes. So we were trying to figure that part out as well.
Yeah.
This is going to sound weird, but I know John can hear me. So John, when you're ready, give us a thumbs up and we'll change scenes, okay? All right. All right, so that's when the prep started for this thing. But like I said, the range was going through a bunch of changes. I knew they had added the bays, but they hadn't quite been finalized. We didn't know the numbering of the bays. We didn't know where we were going to set up. That didn't come till what, about 2 or 3 weeks before the match
Yeah,
when we
we
finally.
didn't have that information very much before the public did, and that probably that I think that's in large part there were a couple of a little bit of upheaval at Greater Pittsburgh. We don't need to get into in terms of match staffing and so forth that happened pretty close to the event. So
Right,
they were scrambling a bit to get things like that done.
right. Then I'm trying to think on the timeline. There were so many questions. That's why I had Dave on to talk about the match, and then you and I had a video conference call just with Bill to try to go through some of this and figure out how we were going to do certain things. But I mean, until we really put boots on the ground, we didn't know exactly how any of this was going to work. I mean, thank God you were local because you had gone out there at least and learned that the Wi-Fi system in place was not going to work. We could not do anything with that.
Right. So the way it was at Greater Pittsburgh before the match, they had a I think probably like a DSL setup, so they didn't have anywhere near enough upload bandwidth to do live streaming at all, and probably not even very much in the way of video uploading. So I guess in terms of setup, one of the things we had to do pretty early on was kind of commit to bringing our own internet, and that took the form of a rental Starlink setup.
Right. Welcome to the stream, John. You are
How's it
in the
going, folks?
studio. So, for everybody wondering who's taking the high speed video that looked spectacular at Area 8, there's your guy right there, John. And that's his photography company right above him, that logo, VLKA Group. So, check him out if you're in Pennsylvania area. He does crazy good work.
I appreciate it.
Now, speaking of John, I mean, we didn't even know John was going to be able to be there and do any of that till like the week of, or less than 7 days to the actual match.
Uh, yeah, that was nerve wracking on my end as well. So I'm a full time cop, and I do photography as a hobby and a side hustle type deal. So I had to schedule with my department to make sure and then confirm it a week out because we had some manpower changes, which that just plays havoc. And so happy I was able to make it.
Well, yeah, that the video footage was amazing. But your setup, I mean, you put a lot of money in your setup. So getting back, there was still a lot of stuff. Like Jay, I know you had kept going out there as frequently as you could leading up to the match. So you saw the progression of some of the stages, and Drew Maruski would send me a video or a picture here and there of stuff, but we were still kind of flying by the seat of our pants right up until Thursday.
Oh yeah, especially so I shot the staff match on Wednesday and Thursday, and that it's kind of like a common refrain of mine through the course of the weekend was this may have been a little bit ambitious, um, and that was one of the ways in which my schedule might have been a little bit ambitious was the not just shooting the staff match but also shooting it on 2 days and effectively losing a lot of those 2 days that I could have been doing prep work during.
Right. But I think it also gave us a perspective.
Oh, absolutely. Like that's kind of the the balance to find there. Like the fact that I went and that I shot all those stages, I was able to, when we had people in the booth, I was able to talk a little bit. I guess I'd like to talk with them on kind of the same grounds. Like, what did you do? This is what I did. How did you find this element that we would have both known was more challenging that looked just walking through it?
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. But like you said, I mean that presented other challenges because I had just gotten there Tuesday afternoon. So I stopped in, figured out we might need a couple of things. So I went and picked up some things that night. And then Wednesday morning, we're trying to set up the Starlink, which you had kind of set up Tuesday, but we had to run the Ethernet. We had to run 200 feet of Ethernet cable from its location to our location and then set up a Wi-Fi router basically.
yeah. But
So there was a lot going on.
Yeah, the best place to put it, especially for like a temporary setup like ours, was on top of one of the like the thrower houses on the skeet fields, and that's obviously a little ways to the east of the clubhouse, and then we were on the west side of the clubhouse a little bit further down a hill some. So the Wi-Fi from the router, which is where the power was, which is even further away from us, was not going to get to us anymore. If we'd kept it in the clubhouse, it might have worked from there, but the clubhouse would have had to take it down and put it back up every day, and I didn't want to add more to our list of things to do in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot going on because then we had to figure out what our setup was going to be because we didn't know until we literally, again, put boots on the ground, which we just learned John was going to be there too. So now we have not just me and you, but now we have me, you, and John to figure out how we're going to utilize the space that we have.
Yeah, about 10 linear feet of tables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they loaned us a 6-foot table and another smaller table. I had brought a smaller table with me and bought and two more smaller tables, a 4-foot table, and then it looks like what I would call an old style TV tray, but it was a little bit bigger, a little bit more solid than that. But we had a lot going on because we had a 32-inch monitor, we had the camera, we had the tables, we had all of our computer equipment. John had 800 pieces of photography stuff that was like a big Lego system. He would sit over there. I mean, it was like the oh shoot, what's that movie where those things change? The
Transformers.
Yeah, it's like a transformer. That's what all his photography equipment was. And then we both had drones. So we had drones everywhere. We had computers everywhere. It was quite the setup.
You guys had what, 7 or 8 drones total?
Just the 4.
Four.
Just-
Yeah, we had 4
yeah.
drones.
Still,
I could have sworn
Yep.
there was more.
they
Well-
were very busy, all of them.
Yes, they
Fair
were.
enough.
It's funny that you posted that you had to send the drone back to me to put the memory card in it for you, and then you flew it back to you.
Yeah, that was a good one. That's also, it's amazing. Like, that was maybe just barely as I was getting down toward the pool deck. Like, I was flying just on the camera as opposed to like watching it down, because I can't really see where it is in relation to the pool deck behind the walls and the building. And that's like, man, you got to fly a whole lot slower when you can't actually see what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the first thing we have on our list here is what was our setup. So we had a mixer for audio where our microphones plugged into. You had your microphone, I had my microphone, and we had a wireless system set up so that if we had 2 guests that simultaneously, they could each have their own microphone. And going back and looking at the video, I almost think that microphone that Morgan used was better. It picked up better than ours did.
Yeah, those 2 were very sensitive, especially on like the high gain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she was probably at one point about an arm's length away from the microphone, and I still heard her better than me and you.
Yeah. I think one of the difficulties we had is like the way our studio was set up and the kinds of microphones we had. The natural thing to do was to look kind of to the side at the other people. And unless you're very careful with like microphone and head placement, you'll be talking away from the microphone like this, and then you won't get nearly the same kind of pickup.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So do you
And that's-
think that
I was saying
Go ahead.
that's particularly hard for the guests to keep track of, because that's not really something they've been briefed on or are likely to remember, even if we do. So like I know, Dave, you had a set of like lavalier microphones that might have been good to set those up, although I would have been a little bit iffy maybe about being as close as we were to the action with that.
Right. Do you think so? While we're talking about the lavalier mics, do you think we should have hooked that up to your interview setup so you could just keep one permanently clipped to you and hand one to the guest
So
or the interviewee?
Yeah. I think the handheld worked pretty well there, because it meant I didn't have to worry about where I was in relation to the stage. I could pull someone literally, 15 or 20 feet away from from the back vault line of a stage, and we could still have a conversation you could hear over over somebody running it in the background. And again, that's something we'd have to try out with with that setup. If it works to isolate the noise just as well, then absolutely it would have been nice not have to back and forth with the microphone the whole time.
Right.
Especially
Yeah.
some people, as like they move their heads around when they talk, so I've got to like follow them around, and so. But yeah, I'm very pleased with the microphone I got with that. It's the one I used in the studio, the one I used for the handheld stuff. Actually, it's the one I'm using right now. This little Audio Technica USB guy.
Yeah, it has good quality sound.
Yeah,
But
the little Windjammer dead cat thing on top of it, I think that also makes a huge difference. Not largely for wind, but also maybe a little bit for cutting down on gunfire noise, which is kind of maybe slightly reducing the pressure or something. I don't know. I thought it worked better that way than without, having tried it both ways.
we had one camera in the studio, but I don't know how many. Okay, John, this is where you can chat about what you were using to record all of the shooters out on the stages.
So I had 2 cameras. Primary video camera is my FX3, and this is literally the camera just stripped down to the bare basics. Shotgun mic, DJI RS2 gimbal, V-mount battery that just powered everything for the duration, and a monitor. I'm debating on whether or not I want to get a belt that I can just slide the gimbal into and just be able to steady that a little bit more and balance the weight, so I'm not destroying my arms. I mean, the great part is I didn't have to hit the gym at all for those 4 days, but that we'll see if I can do this more often, and I'll probably invest in something like that. Um, and for photos, actually using the camera I'm streaming on right now, A7 IV, and stuck with a couple prime lenses for the duration. Um, it was interesting not using a zoom. Really crisp, clear photos, and the video was, I mean, I'm running right next to the guys the entire time. I think a few of the RSOs were uh, nervous until they actually figured out that I am listening, and I've done this a dozen or so times on some tactical ranges, so it's not a big deal for me. Uh,
I don't know if you guys have seen the video I posted of Christian on stage 7, but it was really good in that both of you guys were filming him, and both of you, like you, John, are in the video following him around, and the drone that Jay is flying can be visible in my scene as he's following Christian with the drone. So I got everybody.
a great behind the scenes photo or
Yeah.
video.
So how well did it work on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being perfect? Did it work colluding with the range officers so you could follow the shooters?
So halfway through Saturday, halfway through Friday even, um, I developed a decent rapport with most of them, and it became okay. I'm briefing them on what my plan is after watching the walkthroughs, and they a lot of the shooters would follow the same basic paths, and there were a few telltale signs that they had to double back or something, and we would pick that up real quick. So they would just give me a heads up of, hey, don't go further than this, or they would just tug on my shirt sleeve and I would just double back. And they got very comfortable with me being able to do that. The only places that got real challenging for me going in with them were tight confined spaces like the school bus. One RSO was fantastic for that because he's a slimmer dude who can do all sorts of acrobatics. God bless him.
Shiva.
I don't,
Yep.
yeah, I don't know how he managed to actually like slide underneath the camera, like lean up against the wall, and I swear he crawled along the ceiling to get out of the shot a couple times.
That was tight in that bus.
Yeah, and I got a couple of really good videos following behind the shooter being able to do that with Shiva. The other gentleman, you know, just a little too large for me to be able to get around him in those tight confined spaces. But that's where Jay put up the camera and the visor, and that was clutch. And that gave a different perspective because how often do you get to see the shooter advancing and firing?
Right.
So
Yeah, and then the next day, or no, it was Sunday only, where we
Yeah.
put the camera in the bus, where Corey did. Corey Katz put the camera actually at the very front of the bus facing towards the back, so you got to see the shooter advancing towards you as they engaged the targets.
Yeah, that's where we got all the Super Squad video from. That
Right.
I guess that's the other half of the camera setup, right? The stuff, the remote cameras, and I
Yes.
guess
And that's where we tried putting out 4 cameras on the different stages. So I guess we should back up to Friday because Corey showed up Friday afternoon, close to the end of the day, with his Starlink system and set up a second Wi-Fi mesh network along some of the stages. And we tried putting cameras out, and the farther ones away, we just had nothing but problems with. Like stage 14, I had one. Stage 13, I had one, but they just weren't, they were basically too far away to really have good signal. So we consolidated everything on Sunday, closer in, and that seemed to work a little better. But while I like the Starlink and it gives us enough uplink for streaming, it's definitely an issue in, with the cameras being able to communicate with each other.
Yeah, that really boils down to, I think, limitations just of mesh Wi-Fi generally. It wouldn't, like, any no matter what the uplink is, any mesh Wi-Fi system would probably have the same issues. Just like the way Wi-Fi works, the way the various devices talking deconflict is they will kind of listen for a bit, and if the channel's clear, they'll try and send something. And if they don't get an acknowledgement, then they'll do the same thing again. They'll wait a bit and try and send something else. And if you get like a little bit of congestion, that can kind of snowball out of control, especially with something like steady loads like video upload and video sharing like we had with the remote cameras. So I think one of the things that we would prefer to do next time is have, like, if we do remote cameras, have them wired, or at the very least have like maybe 1 or 2 cameras per Wi-Fi network, and have those networks wired back to the main, like to the bridge somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely have to come up with a better way for the cameras to stay connected, because like I have some videos, like I went back through the live stream Sundays, just one of Sunday's live streaming. It's like 3.5 hours. I went through the whole thing, and there were other people on there that I wanted to extract, but I couldn't because there was too much latency within their run on a certain stage. So it just basically made it unusable. They'd be halfway through and stop, and they'd be frozen, and then then you would see them clearing their gun. I'm like, okay, that doesn't work too well.
Yeah, that's the other thing that like the other impact there is that it's like a widely distributed mesh Wi-Fi system. The way that works is that basically each router just receives and then resends a message to its like the next one up the chain, essentially. So not only do you have the congestion from the cameras trying to talk, you've also got the congestion from the mesh network kind of extending its reach further out. So they're just, I think what it boils down to is that Wi-Fi is not a great multiple video stream transmission protocol. And there are probably better ways to do that. And that's something that we, like, whether it be some other wireless system or something wired with as little wireless in it as possible. That's, I think, going to be the solution to that.
Yeah, I agree. We definitely, yeah, and I don't, yeah. I think anytime we're using a mesh system, it's going to be like that.
Yep.
It's just going to be difficult.
One of those where, like, I don't know, maybe we have like a shared drive, a network attached storage set up somewhere on the network, and we can send clips there as opposed to having to come back to headquarters for it.
This is where we just need the Supreme Court to strike down all magazine limitations and bans, and then we can go to Cameo, because that place is hardwired.
Yep.
You can literally put a camera on every stage and plug it in, and it's in the system. So that's just what we need them to do. So yeah. then we don't have this issue.
Yep.
Then everybody can be happy when we go to Cameo.
I'd be down.
Me too.
Yeah,
all right.
Go ahead. The last camera out there was I had a little handheld DJI like what's it called, phone gimbal, and that was I'd pop that on top of my tripod to get like a level horizon when I was doing face-to-face interviews without having to like worry about adjusting legs and such, and that worked pretty well. I can also give it 2 thumbs up for build quality, because on Sunday, once we got a hold of Corey Shields' golf cart, I had it sitting in the back, standing on the tripod, thinking, oh, it'll stay standing, and it didn't. I actually kind of launched it out the back, taking a corner into the gravel, and it still works fine. So, way to go, DJI.
Well, and Mother Nature blew my drone like 8 to 10 feet. So, and it took a tumble, and it survived. That's the next thing on our list, drones. So I had a Mini 3, you had an Air 3, and you had 2 Air 2S's?
Mavic 2 Zooms.
Okay, Mavic 2 Zooms. Okay.
So those were actually Like I've been saying on social media, if you heard them, they were probably the ones I was flying, or if not, they were the ones that they were Dave's. But despite being noisier and bigger, I found the zoom lens actually really handy on framing a couple of stages from that up above and behind things. So like I was trying to fly them uh, whenever possible, like over a berm or over a tree or like over one of the shelters on the front bays, somewhere that people wouldn't be walking. And the like being able to pick exactly how much I wanted to be in on the shot made that a whole lot easier in a couple of places. So much so that
Okay.
when it became clear to me how useful it would be to have one of my own, I said, well, I'll get one of those. It might be a couple of years old, but I think the best way to get like the top end capabilities is to buy something professional is selling to move up to like the newest greatest thing. So
Yeah. I mean, it's like a camera. I mean,
Oh yeah,
you can buy a 2 or 3-year-old camera and they still work perfectly fine and give you great
exactly.
quality. So
Yeah. The one thing I will say is that batteries were a like perennial thing for me. Uh, so I had 6 of them at the range and would go through probably 4-ish over the course of like a morning or afternoon of relatively steady flying. And the remote controller, the battery in that was I think the biggest limiting thing. So it was good I had a spare, so I could swap out as that died. For future
Okay.
things, I'm probably going to try and hook them up to like a power bank in between stages or in between flights or when I'm doing something else, just to try and keep it topped off as much as possible.
Okay. Booth stuff. We've talked about the booth. I'm pretty sure here. So
Yeah, the
we're good
microphone
there.
mixer I think was a big win to be able to have multiple sources, even if we're in a better like a quieter environment. I think it's going to be good to have that just for like level adjustment and such, kind of on the fly.
Yeah, I agree. Plus, it's one of those things where you can plug it into a computer, move it in between us, and then we can easily
Yeah,
both connect. So it just makes it gives us more space.
yeah, easy to connect. Also, the during interviews, there was a little light on it for you're hitting the max, and
Mm-hmm.
it was good to like keep an eye on that when there was shooting going on to make sure we weren't blasting people's eardrums out too much.
Right. Yeah. All right. Objectives. Now you put down 4, or you had 3. I added a 4th one.
Yep.
The Sports Center wrap ups, the in the field coverage, going live on Sunday. Those were all things we had talked about before we
Yeah.
did it, and the in booth interviews, which we got a couple. The one thing, and I think it's further down. I actually put it somewhere else. I would say the one thing, I thought we were pretty successful with some of this stuff. I think the one thing where we probably lost focus on was the follow up, the data follow up. Like we
Yeah.
did the prediction show on Thursday, but we didn't follow up with that on Saturday or Sunday at all.
Yeah. Some of that is down to the fact that there were some features in Analyst that I didn't finish in time for the match. But some of it's just down, like you said, to task saturation, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot going on. We were rushing around trying to get people to come into the booth to talk to them and go live and talk about stuff. And the match actually flowed very well. So it was ahead of schedule.
A lot.
So that, yeah.
By hours.
Yeah. I think it was 2 hours on Friday?
Yeah, Friday they finished 2 hours early, which, for us, like, all right, we'll go live at 6:30 because that's after like right at the end of the day, schedule wise. And then, everyone's done
at 5 o'clock.
Done shooting for 2 hours by then.
Yeah. At 5 o'clock, we're scrambling to go live because everybody's done and has been done.
Yeah. Which,
So
I guess that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. And good for the shooters,
yeah.
The competitors, the ROs, that's awesome. So no complaint there. It's just now we realize we're going to have to be a little bit, Yeah, we have to follow along with the flow so we know when they're going to be done, because it was like all of a sudden it was like, holy cow, everybody's done. What's going on? Where's everybody going? No, get back there and shoot.
Yeah.
That I think that's probably the one thing where the biggest thing we could have improved on was just the follow up on and it could be as simple as, we had Christian ranked to win, Jacob number 2, but number 3, 4, and 5, those people weren't even on our list type of a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when we did the predictions and then follow up with that stuff. Because I think that's also important and interesting,
Absolutely. Yeah. One thing I've kind of like rattling around in my head is how to better display predictions too, especially when it's kind of like, well, I expect, one or two people up here, then I expect kind of a whole cloud of folks down here, and there's not a ton of distinction between them mathematically. Like it could be any of these people, like any of these 10 people competing for, I don't know, third and fourth, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like when I was doing last year's Carry Optics Nationals live for the last half of Sunday. I mean, Christian had like a 50-point lead, but Nils and Jacob were freaking neck and neck. So the real race was like, who's going to be second? Who's going to be third? Who's doing what? Where's JJ? He had a squib and dropped out. Now he's working back up into the top 20. So there are other stories, kind of like a movie. You got the main plot, but then you have all, 3 or 4 smaller stories that's going on that we can follow.
Yeah. That I think kind of plays back into like the task saturation thing too, just because it's challenging to keep track of all that stuff while you're also trying to get stuff. Well, I guess for you, like trying to get cameras working for you, or trying to find the shooters we want to take pictures of and video of for the field guys.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I would have totally forgotten it. But the other thing too is, if while you guys were out doing what you were doing and I was back at the quote unquote studio, if a camera fell over on a stage, I would have to walk down. I'd have to leave the studio, go down to the stage, figure out what's going on. Because, there were times where I saw people bump into things.
Mm-hmm.
And in other times I would look at the way the iPad was set up. I could see all the views of the cameras and I'm watching the cameras. And next thing I know, I'm looking at somebody's butt on a stage. I'm like, the camera had fallen over and was looking right up at somebody's butt from behind. I'm like, okay, I guess I need to go down there and figure out what's going on. So there was a lot that we were having to deal with. And, that stuff took away from other things. So it was task saturation was legit. So what did you think of the Sports Center wrap-ups?
I think in general they were pretty good, especially Morgan. She was she the afternoon on Sunday, or was she evening on Saturday?
Evening on Saturday.
Yeah, so both the evening shows, when we had a shooter in to talk about one of their stage runs as part of their interview, that was, I think, some of the best stuff we did the whole weekend. Because we can run it forward and back for them on the big monitor in the studio so they can see what they're talking about, and then we've got like the wonderful high overhead look that like really yields good analysis. And yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in that like particular shape of segment, and I think that was, I think, one of the things we did really, really well. The score updates are pretty good. I thought it was kind of fun watching for the last couple of tablets to get uploaded on Sunday as well. You're kind of like sitting, talking about other things, talking about how the match went, some of the finishes in some divisions that already had all the scores in, and then we got to kind of like, there was some anticipation, some excitement about watching the last couple of results trickle in, so we could see who would actually take those divisions.
Okay. I thought they went pretty well. I too thought that the best part was when Matt Nash came in, or Morgan, to talk about the match and how they did. And then like, you know, being able to put one of their stages up on the screen in front of them where
Yeah.
they could see it and talk about that was fantastic in that. I mean, we almost looked professional there.
Yeah.
Where
Well, we came. I came this close to having like a working telestrator set up on my laptop, so I could have made my laptop like the had it set it up for that, and then just given them like a touchscreen pen, and they could have like actually marked up their own runs as they were going, and that would have been super cool. Maybe next time.
that would have been. That's just one more technological challenge
Yeah.
we have.
Well,
that
was
and trying to go ahead.
that was something I tested. I tested like not like tremendously extensively, but I did a couple of a couple of test runs on my laptop. I posted one on YouTube, like breaking down a stage from one of the previous Greater Pittsburgh locals from the overhead view. Like, here are the critical positions, and here's where you got to go to get there, and you got like options going up and out or backward and through the shooting area, kind of thing. And the only thing I didn't test was the virtual camera output, which is what we needed to hook it up to EVMux. So we got ready. I was like setting up to do it. I was all pumped, and then I just had like a black screen. So I was like, oh no, like the one thing, like my one big contribution to all the in-booth technology.
Well, and I think I'm close to figuring out how to show live drone footage.
That'll be super cool too. Like, again, that was another thing I was really close to from a different angle. But like Dave's got the controller that has the like an actual video output on it. Mine I would have had to stream from my phone, like from the phone attached to the controller somewhere else. But yeah, that's I think something would be super cool, and something that again is like very close to actually happening for the next one.
Yeah, and I think what I'm going to try to work on is connecting the drone controller to the iPad and using that as like a second screen for the drone, and have that airplayed to the laptop like before, and then share it like a screen.
Yeah.
Like a tab or a window or something like that. So that's going to be what I work on. So if we do this again, hopefully we can literally show live drone footage of a stage. So, or stages and just the match in general.
Yeah. That's one where the drones you have make a big difference, like the extra 10 or 15 minutes of flight time per battery.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like 35 or 40 minutes. If you're up there for that length of time, you can pretty much cover an entire stage from start to finish. Like when the shooters, like after they finish their walkthroughs, provided it's not too slow to reset, you can just kind of hover and watch, and you'll get everybody.
Agree. I'm wondering, I don't know how. It's like stage 14 was only 12 rounds. It was 2 strings, so it took a little bit of time there. I'm trying to think if there was any other really small stage that would have been quick, because
1 and 2 both would have been fairly fast, maybe 3 as well, but 2 in particular, that one flew by. I mean, with one of the zooms, I was up there for almost the whole time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Stage
all right, because
4 also seemed pretty quick.
Yeah, that was a surprising one too, because it was one of the bigger stages, but I guess it only had the one activator, and it wasn't a super complicated one.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because the other thing about flight time is if you're not recording, which I wouldn't be recording, we would just be flying. Well, that also, the recording takes more battery as well. So it's more of a drain. So that would give you the full, like I can get about 40 minutes with recording. So without just sitting there and hovering, might be able to get 41 or 42 minutes out of it.
Yeah.
It would be pretty solid. In the field coverage, I thought was good. Now let me ask you guys this, because we're all still going through video footage. Like I'm going through the live stream stuff I've downloaded from EVMux. I've only got through 1 3.5 hour session, and I still have stuff on my Mac that I'm trying to go through. John, I know you have like 476,539 videos, as well as
Yeah.
you, Jay.
Yeah.
So, what is there a better way that we can get those and get them out sooner, whether it's during the match for media coverage or even say within the next week?
So I've got roughly a terabyte of photo and video combined. If I look at just the video, it's probably close to 600 gigabytes worth. That's a lot of data. Um, Processing all of that would probably take a dedicated editor to be able to do that in the field, because I'm handling the rig, getting all the recording done, and then trying to bring it back, dump all the media onto a hard drive, and then going through all that footage is another task in and of itself. So having an extra body there to just sort through stuff, pick out what actually looks good, and be able to cut that up real quick, that would help a lot, as far as being able to do it that day towards the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree that the ideal case is like a full-time editor. But that's
That's like best case scenario, and we're really hoping for that one. Alternatively, we might have to skip being in the field for a little bit just to go through and pick out, keep in the back of our minds, hey, this run looked fantastic,
Yeah.
and have a backup one that we can just present, like one or two runs even.
Yeah, I think like a schedule, like even just saying we're going to take the next stage off. We're going to try and spend like 40 minutes getting as much video together as we can for release. And then even if there's time, like scheduling it to sort of dribble out over the course of the next couple of hours would kind of help fill some dead time in the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm very pleased. Like toward the, when was it? Maybe like on Saturday sometime, I figured out that I could just upload the like the drone footage that's cached on the phones. Like when it radios the video down, it saves a copy on the phone, and I can just upload that, and that's in 1080p. The quality's not great because it's coming over a radio link, but it's good enough for like Instagram, and like it gets something up fast, and I could do those practically as fast as the shooter's shot. Like if I record somebody, I take a minute to upload the footage and I'm ready to record the next shooter, like the second shooter after the one I recorded. So there wouldn't be a big gap in doing that sort of on a bigger basis.
Yeah, that is way different from my end, which is 4K at 60 frames a second.
Yeah, no, John's got all like the maximum quality stuff there to sift through, and that's the challenge. Some of the other challenges I think were like the requirements EVMux had for us for uploads. I mean, given what I ended up doing, I think I'd probably keep my settings the same. Like record all the full res stuff gets in a much better compressed codec, and then the drone cache that is already in the format we need. But
I'm definitely going to have to adjust the what I render, whatever I clip, because apparently that was a little too much spice for whatever we were using.
Well, that I think Instagram had trouble too. Like the 4K 60 frames per second 10-bit color, like all the ultra quality stuff. That again is like actually what really makes it all the footage pop, because it's just like the source material is in such high quality. But
funny enough, I down-res it to 1080p, but I think it was just so much data within that it was giving a lot of trouble as far as being able to upload it. So I've got a couple backup plans so that next time we do this, it'll be a lot quicker. Not to mention, it'll be a smaller file so that you guys can upload it a lot quicker while I'm out in the field.
Okay.
So that should help smooth a few things out.
Well, and I don't, not to jump ahead a little bit, but I think this goes back to something else that Jay and I have been talking about, where we need to create one media point And then maybe within that, we allow, I'll use the word collaborator as well, so that even if John isn't necessarily primarily going to be the one to put it out like on a live stream, he still has access to edit stuff, put it in there and things like that as well, so that we have one folder that we can go to and go, oh, look, John's uploaded 10 videos for us to choose from to put out for people to see, you know?
Yeah. That's, I think I mentioned earlier, like a little network attached storage box, something we can just plug into our router and say, okay, I'm going to dump a bunch of files here. These ones are probably good. Like maybe take a look at those, sort of thing.
Yeah. Live on Sunday. Now, I thought the live stuff went well. The challenge is what everybody says. You throw a couple of cameras on stages and it's just boring footage. So I totally get that. I'm not sure what the answer is with that, but I thought the stuff that we did live in the studio was good. We could probably add a little bit more meat to it, but overall, I thought that went well.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. Like, even I think you mentioned this at some point during the weekend. If you have two people in the booth, then that solves a lot of problems on like two people in the booth on a regular basis, because then you can at least talk about what's going on, look at scores, and so like there's some back and forth to fill the time between runs, especially on say like Sunday afternoon when the squad matrix wasn't full, when there were gaps. You could have cameras that are pointing at dead stages, and then you've got some. If you had two people, and again, like we were saying, the like a shared storage place, then you can run some old footage. You can talk about it. You can go back over scores. You can we see it was very close here on stage 7 yesterday. Let's take a look at some video from there. That kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's also where. Did you see the sample that I put up in the Google Drive file where I took stage 10 and put the dimensions on there?
Yep.
I mean, they're all fake, but let me just share that screen so that is that it? Yeah, that's it. This way John can see too. Let me crop it down so we can just see. This is where I think that having the two people in the booth and being able, this would be good filler right here. We could show some stage 10 footage, but also show, look, when this guy's at this corner, he has a 25-yard shot to a bobbing target, or, when he's up here in this other corner, he's got 35 yards to the mini poppers back there. Little things like that to really, I think, show people what we're talking about and how difficult some of the stages were that they set up.
That's another thing I would have loved to have the telestrator for. I mean, again, just getting the channeling my inner John Madden and drawing all over these things to say like, okay, from here you can see these things. And, lots of circles, kind of.
They're going to do all the bams and the bangs and the pew-pews and the
exclamation mark.
Yeah. So I think, I think having that bank of videos and other stuff would be good filler. But at the same time, I think almost like maybe it's a once an hour, like every hour on the hour, we go live for a half hour. And then people can pop in, there's a half hour. If it takes 40 minutes, that's fine. But, where it can be maybe a little more structured.
Yeah.
And so people aren't popping in and there's nothing there, but they know, we know every hour from at 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 o'clock on Sunday, they're going to be going live. Then I'll pop in at 2 when I can.
That also gives like the studio crew some time to go and adjust cameras, or
Yeah.
pick up the ones that are pointing at a shooter's butt currently.
Yeah. Find out where those final squads are, what the standing updates are, and it gives us, more to talk about at the top of the hour again.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, that would also be a good chance for like me even to just run back, know in my head, hey, I've got a really good run. I'll just do a real quick raw cut so that you have something to look at,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to compare that with like a top-down view, because it gives a totally different feel when the camera's right there next to the shooter.
Yeah. I thought the one shot of
Absolutely.
the one shot of Edens on stage 2 that that just went up the other day, that was was a really good one. Like, I know you got like some of the, like, you're closer because of the zoom. Doesn't forget, it looks like you're right there. It's great.
Actually, his spent brass was bouncing off the camera. That's how close I was able to get.
Wow. And again, the ROs allowed that.
Yeah, so I keep a couple things in mind as far as positioning goes. What is the 180 for the stage? I know that that is the direction. Like, I cannot go past that. Generally, no further up than the RO himself. And there were a few stages where I could sneak forward a little bit, but I knew that there was a target array that they would just be facing to the right. So I would be hard left and directly behind them the entire time. So being able to brief that to the RO and show them, hey, I deconflicted fires. This is actually safe. And for me to get hurt, the shooter would have to do a complete 180 and do something incredibly wildly stupid, which there is a chance, but I would expect better at a match like this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, anything can happen at any match, but I was at Carry Optics Nationals in 2020 and there was a female on our squad. First match she ever shot in her life. So you do get you can get that
Trial
level at
by
any match.
fire.
Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But now, John, you've shot USPSA.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing, people need to know too, is while you may be a police officer and this is your side gig, you also compete. So you're aware of everything. You understand everything. So you're able to communicate with those ROs to where they know, okay, he knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. And you were able to earn their trust.
Yeah. Being able to actually brief some of those things, walk through a stage like I'm one of the shooters and explain where I'm going to go in relation to where I would expect the shooter to be. And then actually point out the individuals that were outliers when I saw their stage walkthroughs. That went a long way.
Okay. Now, Jay, when you were doing in the field coverage with the drone, when you had it lower, like you did with Leighton and them, what did you say or do anything with the ROs or the shooters or any of that?
So the only shooters I got that footage for were ones who asked me for it directly. I didn't want to be like I didn't want to ask the competitor, hey, can I fly something really low next to your head? I don't want to throw off your game or anything. Even the question might throw off some people, right? But a couple of people approached me over the course of the match and said, hey, that's like a really cool angle. Can I get that for me? And I said, yeah, sure, absolutely. And the ROs were good about it. Most of the time, the shooters said it kind of like in the RO's earshot. The one time they didn't, I just let them know ahead of time that I'd be low and cleared it with them first too. Yeah, it was okay.
Okay.
The one thing, like the one little tiny setup change I would have made if I were like pitching tents at Greater Pittsburgh, I would have put them just like a hair further back, because that was actually like usually my limiting factor on altitude. So I want to be high enough so there's no risk of hitting the tent or tripping one of the obstacle sensors on the tent, like to stop the tracking. So I had to be like up at maybe 12 or 13 feet instead of the 9 or 10 that would have been like an even better over the shoulder angle.
Okay. Now, how far behind the shooter were you? So you were 13 to 15 feet high, but how far behind were you trailing?
Roughly 20 to 30 feet, I think.
Were you using any zoom at all, or was that just the natural
That was-
angle of the camera?
That was full wide angle with the like the automatic tracking engaged. I did a little tiny bit of like of framing on stage 7 to like sort of follow the flow of the stage better, but otherwise it was just the drone doing its thing, which I thought was kind
Okay.
of cool. Yeah.
All right. Because I know I just went up now for people viewing or who may go back and listen. Jay and I had to split up the airspace.
Mhm.
So Jay was below 75 feet or 150 feet, and I was above 150 feet.
Yeah, depending on the stage and where
So-
we were over the course of the day.
Right. So that
Yeah,
way
so
we
the-
wouldn't collide drones.
Yeah, that would have been an expensive mistake.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I would have cried.
Yeah, so the reason we split it up that way. So although the drone I was flying had a zoom lens, the drone Dave was flying actually has like a second zoom camera, and that's got more magnification on it than the continuous zoom drones did. So he could be higher up and still get a closer angle, like an angle that looked closer or as close as I could flying a little bit lower.
Yeah, there was a stage, I don't remember which one it was. I was at 162 or 167 feet, and I went to use the zoom lens, and it was too much. Like I
Mhm.
lost part of the stage,
Yeah,
so I had to go back to the original and then just zoom in a little bit with that one.
Yep.
So, but it still looked great. Now, the in booth interviews I thought were probably the highlight of the entire match.
yeah. And of course, we were
For-
supposed to have what two more that I kind of unintentionally messed up because like I went and talked to a couple of people in the field, and those were people that Dave had reached out to like to schedule interviews with beforehand, and they thought that the one like talking to me that well I've talked to them, it's good now. And so like it took what two people who missed appointments before we realized what was going on. And like, oh no, I've caused another thing.
Yeah, that was Friday.
Yep.
So we missed Wampler, Garospi, and I forget who the other. I
Yi-Min.
think it was Yi Min. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
I
missed
mean, we could have
those.
gotten him some other day. He was around the whole weekend.
Right. Although I never saw him, so I don't know where. I saw him at the end of the day Saturday when he was talking to you up by the clubhouse. I don't think I saw him on Sunday. I don't remember. But anyway, that doesn't matter. But yeah, so there was just a misunderstanding on their part where they were like, "Oh, okay, I did the interview. We're good to go."
Yeah.
So
Again, something that I can remember for next time, and we can do better.
yeah, I mean, that was just a weird one.
Yeah.
So like we've said with everything, it's live and learn with how we're doing this. So.
Like literally the first time or I think really anybody has tried to cover a match like this. So
For sure.
all kinds of fun lessons to take into the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, the in booth interviews were really spectacular, if you ask me. I don't think that really can be beat, because that is no different than any other sporting event where they bring people in afterwards, whether it's golf and people come into the studio, or if you ever watched like Thursday Night Football where they set up almost on the field. And then at the end of the game, they'll have, while they're doing the post-game stuff, they'll have players come over and just talk with them about, the game, and they'll talk about plays and stuff like that. I mean, it was the equivalent of that.
Yeah.
Maybe not at that level, because those are the pinnacle of professional sports, but still, it's very similar.
Yeah.
Stop it.
And those went really well, I think, because there was more time for them. The in the field stuff, I think, like the better the shooter was, the less interesting the interview was in the field, because they're all keyed in mentally out there. They're all talking. They're kind of giving the sports platitudes because they know how to keep their head in the game. They're not interested in talking strategy. They're just gonna like, all right, I'm going to crush the next one, as I think as Siler said. Both times I talked to him. So getting those kind of people into the booth after the shooting is over, there's a better chance to maybe get more of what they're actually thinking. Like the people, like the kind of second tier, like the next level of shooter down from like the national champion folks. I thought were all really interesting. Like Wampler, when I talked to him, he had a lot of cool stuff to say. Jake Walker, like that kind of that level of shooter, they're a little bit less like 100% national
Hyper
champion
focused.
mentality. Yeah, in the
Right.
game.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
Now, do you think like because when I watched your interviews with Christian, my whole thing was like, this dude's just super focused on shooting. You know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah.
Like this stage, next stage, that's what he's focused on. Do you think it would have been different had we been able to get him in the booth like we did with Morgan?
On Sunday afternoon, I think probably it would have, maybe like a little bit more at least, or it could be. So like I did talk briefly with Christian once after the camera had stopped rolling, and he had a little more to say then. So it might just be like when I'm in public, so to speak, I'm only going to say certain things, and I can respect that.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so I think there's at least a chance, and at minimum, you get a different mindset. Somebody coming in to sit down for 10 or 15 minutes versus somebody who's got like, I don't know, a minute before they've got to go load mags and start pasting again.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm telling you, we need to make all major matches staff reset because, man, that North Carolina section, when I was there, I got I posted like 30 different interviews I got because they weren't
Yeah, people have
rushed
the
to
time.
do any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. So you could go, I mean, they were very relaxed and it was easy. So yeah.
I think it's also part that you're a much more practiced interviewer than me. You know, you've done like 300 of these like long form things, and I'm up to maybe 10 of like the 10 1-minute interviews. So there's a big difference there too.
I thought they were good though. I thought and you know, I like the perspective you're bringing because you're asking questions because of your shooting background.
Right,
so it's good.
So
It's very
that
good.
is I think kind of the peak question to ask for that face-to-face interview. Like, what do you think of this stage? What were the challenges? You know, what went right for you? What went wrong?
Right. What did you think of the timing of X, Y, or Z?
Yeah. How that activator sequence go? What do you think of the sliding poppers? Like the kind of things that, especially the things that make a particular match unique, but also just reactions in the moment, like to shooters coming off of a stage. That was Bill Drummond's suggestion, to not just to pick anybody off of a stage, but to get the person who just shot, because like it's still super fresh in their mind. They're still keyed up a little bit on adrenaline. You get maybe more interesting stuff from that. Although I think one of the most interesting face-to-face talks was the one with Shane Coley, where you know, he let slip, no, I've shot from a boat before. This isn't the first time, and that was a good one.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I guess Morgan one-upped him in the studio, saying, "I've shot from a boat and from a bus before." Like, man, Team Block is just ready.
Right. Yeah, they're ready for everything. Now he's supposed to be doing a tactical games, I think, this weekend.
There might be a boat, there might be a bus.
Right. There could be a cast. So at the end of it, who knows? Okay. And the next question I think that you had put in here was, what did we achieve? I think we achieved most of what we wanted to do. Might have been a little chaotic at times, but I feel like, you know, and we obviously did some things better than others. And again, the in booth interviews obviously were at the top of the heap there. But I feel like we achieved everything. I just feel like the one thing we missed out on was more follow-up. But again, we were kind of strapped for man hours there, and you guys were out doing your in the field stuff. So really couldn't communicate much before going live.
Yep.
So
I think if we had a better sense for like when the match was going to end, we could have done we could have scheduled, say, like a post game show kind of thing. All right, the results are in. Let's take a look at predictions. Who overperformed? Who didn't quite match expectations? That kind of thing.
Right. I guess one of the challenges there would be, how do we notify the viewing public
Yeah,
of that? That, hey, match is over. We're going to go live in 30 minutes. With the end of the day Sports Center
yeah.
follow up,
I
wrap
think
up.
that was a big challenge the whole weekend. Really, like getting the same visibility for the live stuff uh, as we did for the stuff we were sharing through the course of the day.
I like a broadcast schedule, but like we've been saying, I mean, like that match, when you're 2 hours ahead on a Friday, it's hard to get that schedule rebroadcast so people can see it
Yeah,
and follow it. Now you were saying that your views on Instagram were way up over that weekend, the course of that
yes.
weekend.
The pretty much all the like the live or near live stage runs that I posted, people like that a lot. I feel like those were those and actually the interviews. Those were like my clear view winners over the course of like Friday to Sunday.
John, were you able to post any of your stuff over the weekend?
Not too much. I managed to get a couple photos, I think, mainly in the stories. Um, all the photos I take are in raw format, just because that gives me the most flexibility with post processing.
Right.
I am slowly releasing videos and photos, um, and I'll probably have a couple dozen to post by the end of the week. Um, and I know that there were folks who are interested in getting their own copies. They can just reach out to me, just on my Instagram page for the company. That's one of the easy ways to do it. Um, so yeah, that's something to look. That's something to look out for. Is just the higher quality edits. Um, one thing I would like to be able to do is be able to sit down, pick out a couple of highlight reels, a couple of the shooters who we thought did really well, and be able to post that sooner. This way we can keep maintaining interest in it.
Yeah. And some of the people like Jay mentioned, Jake Walker, Skylar Davis, there are other good shooters that aren't national level, but
Mhm.
still garner interest. And
Mm.
and I actually had someone message me on Instagram saying, where a lot of us are more interested in the not national champions, the non-national champions, because there's, everybody knows those guys, but these other guys are intriguing because they're working hard to
Yeah,
to work their way up to that level.
I think that's another part of the like another piece of the like the in the field interviews thing too. Yeah,
Okay.
kind of
All
like
right.
getting the up and comers is like there might be more interest there even than getting the nationals guys.
Right. But I see where what John is doing there, especially at Area 8 with the video and stuff. I'm wondering if, and I don't know how long that was because I know that, look, 4K video is big. So, I mean, how long would it even take? I don't even know. Is it realistic to even try to put out like maybe 3 times a day a 30-second collage of, like uh, 4 or 5 second video footage, and you put, 4 or 5 of those together, 6 of those together? I don't want to call it a B-roll, but it would kind of, into like a sizzle roll or something like
Mhm.
reel or something like that. I mean, I don't even know how long that would take.
So putting together a quick highlight reel, 30 seconds with 4 to 5 seconds of different shooters, I could probably do a couple Yeah, I could probably do 2, maybe 3 for the day, provided we have a schedule with, hey, we're going to skip the next stage, we're going to dump all the media, and we're just going to hammer this down real quick before we punch out again. Which would also be beneficial in that we can swap batteries, swap memory cards, whatever else, grab a quick Gatorade that's still cold instead of sitting in our backpacks,
Right. That's now
and then
80 degrees.
yeah, and then punch right back out after we get that together. And then you'll have something that you can show because let's say a stage takes 40 seconds. 40 seconds from the buzzer to the last shot. So I can easily pull I can easily pull 4 to 5 seconds per shooter for the entire squad and put something together. Um, and I know that I can work the camera so that it has the proxy file, so I'm not editing a 4K video
Yep.
and crushing my laptop.
Right.
It'll downscale it to like 1080p, and then I can work with that file, and then it just matches it up with a higher resolution one, so that I can hammer something out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've got to download it, so that takes time, and then you have to,
So-
edit it and process it and all of that.
Yeah. So the thing that downloading the footage is what really hurts. If I wait to the end of the day, that will take like 30 minutes for the full memory card. But if I do it after a couple stages, it'll probably take me like 5-10 minutes, which is about the time it'll take me to go to the bathroom, grab a drink, refresh, and then give me another like 30 minutes to just hammer something out real quick. I think it's doable to do two of them for the day, and then heck, even at lunch, put together one extra one of just one solid run from start to finish with a couple of the ones that we recognized recognized as ones that would be interesting.
Okay. Because you figure what, on average, it's about 40 minutes a stage. So that's about the time you would have.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we'd have to actually create a schedule where we know, when they hit this stage, it's a break. When they hit this stage, it's a break. That type of thing.
Yes, especially with some of the stages, it was more difficult for me to be following behind the shooter just because of the way they had the stage set up. There would either be a vision barrier with the wall, or there would be too many times that the shooter would have to potentially backtrack or turn in my direction, where I would just be like halfway back behind him with the stage, and I wouldn't really have much to do. So we could plan things out where, hey, take a break at this stage, just drive right back, do the whole thing, and then we know the next stage will be good to go. Definitely make sure we have our radios on us so that we can communicate, hey, they're already punching out, wrap it up, punch out what you have, and get back at it.
I thought, especially once I realized that I had to like actually turn up the volume to hear it, the radios, like that was a good thing to have. Like we could spread out even more than we did on the first 2 days, and like catch different squads on different stages, then meet back for like a big the main event, say somewhere else.
Another big thing was actually just you having a vehicle that we could be more mobile instead of having to lug it around on foot. That was a game changer. I hate using that phrase, but it really was a big game changer in that we could actually zip from one end of the range back to the studio in just minutes instead of taking 15 walking on foot.
Yeah, we used John's car for a lot of the weekend, and then I said for Sunday morning ish, I had a golf cart I could zip around into, and honestly, like having more than one vehicle to get around the range in makes it even easier. So then we can like actually be in different places easily, as opposed to having to like someone has to hoof it to get there.
Right. I mean, if you were at a place like CMP too, where you have 1 and 2, sections A and B, which are right beside each other, but C is up the hill and around the corner, that's a little bit more difficult where you'd want to be able to have that mobile action.
Yeah. I know that like there are some venues that just have more golf carts on hand than others do. And those I think are the ones that are easiest to cover, probably.
Yeah.
Like I don't think CMP is going to run out of golf carts. I don't think Cardinal's going to either. They've got, I think, a ton just from up at the shotgun side they can bring down, possibly.
Okay.
At least I see a lot of golf carts, like with the Cardinal people in them when I shoot out there. So.
Okay. Yes, I agree. You suck at shooting.
Let's put it on.
That
on
sounded
screen,
weird.
Yeah, to make that a little bit less
There we
confusing
go.
for the for the viewers.
USPSA should hire you guys to do their live coverage. I agree wholeheartedly.
As long as it's not a Revolver Nationals, because I'm shooting that. I'm shooting that on the main day.
We're gonna make Jay shoot staff day. If he wasn't trying to get a world shoot slot, we'd be okay. So Jay, you just don't need to worry about world shoot.
Yeah. Maybe that would be a little bit rude to other potential qualifiers. So that'll be my pay,
There you go. So, all right. So, John, if you had Area 8 to do again, you get a redo, you get a mulligan, so you get to redo it. What would you do differently over those 3 days?
I would definitely schedule times where I would just download all the media and do a quick highlight reel so that I could fill up some of the dead space back in the studio. And it would also save me a lot of headache towards the end of the day, because then I don't have to spend 30 minutes just downloading one card. Really dial it down during the lunch break where I could go through and just even tag each file with which shooter at what stage. Definitely memorize which stage is what number better, because that would help the organization. Nothing really with the way I had things set up. That setup with the camera worked amazingly well. And make sure I have a vehicle to just be more mobile from the start.
Okay. Jay, what about you?
I think so. I've maybe got 2 or 3. The first one being, I think, maybe slightly better mission definition from the start. Like, am I there? Am I going to try and follow the people who are going to win the division? Like, people who are almost certainly going to win their divisions. Is my job to get as much as I can of them, or is my job to get good coverage of the match, like the match as a whole? Is it the races that we're covering or the match? And that's an open question. I think the races are where, like, if we're doing the pure sports coverage, that's where the that's where it would go. Maybe depending on where funding comes from in the future, that's kind of what makes the difference, right? If a match hires us, then I think the job is to cover the match as opposed to necessarily to exclusively the people who are going to win. If there's outside sponsorship, then maybe the job is to cover the winners, like to get whatever will make people the most interested in following the broadcast. As far as like personal technical stuff goes, I had one. I probably would have done the so like toward the second half of the match, I started landing the drone between shooters, and that I think, especially for the slightly older models with slightly less flight time, that made a massive difference in how much I could get. It also gave me a very convenient point to say, like, into the phone recording the audio, this is Jacob Hetherington on stage 7, and then I wouldn't need to go and like squint at the back of the jersey to see if it's a long name or a short name, like above the Army Marksmanship Unit logo.
Yeah, because their names are
like
small,
super tiny font
print. Yeah.
You have to go by the length of the name.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like squinting, so there's a lot of yellow on top, and that must be a Hetherington there. Yeah.
Yeah. When it goes from tip of shoulder to tip of shoulder, okay,
Yep.
you know that's Hetherington.
Yep.
When it's
No, so,
like just behind the right across the spine, oh,
Yep,
that's Edens.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's another thing that I should have been doing the whole weekend, like giving myself a little hint for who I'm videoing, especially for like the lesser known people, because there's some video in the big Google Drive folder I have that I have no idea who it is. So like I'm on this stage, I'm recording, I'll get this person, I might as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really think the interviews on the stages were popular, you
Yes.
know, regardless of whether it was Christian Seiler or Matt Nash or whom, I'm just throwing names out, or Dave Wampler, you know what I
Yep.
mean? It was still, that's very, I think people find that interesting.
Yes.
So
I think another thing I could do, I'll probably record those portrait next time. They play better on Instagram, I think. So I know you can do landscape stuff, but the uploading reels from phones is a lot less straightforward, I think, than if you're like editing something down to landscape size on a disc. So I tried doing one stage video like rotated, and that I think was a lot easier to see for the average person scrolling through Instagram on their phone. Hopefully, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll try and do another match, like another local match, and try a couple of different things and see what people like out of that.
Well, I'm going to throw it out there right now then, because one of the things I added earlier today was, okay, we talked about having a consolidated place, all the media.
Mm-hmm.
What if how much do you think it hurts the broadcast if we don't use Instagram, except to post stuff after the fact? Because I feel like X or Twitter is way more better suited for this. It gives you the full landscape. It gives you everything you need. But it's not as popular for shooters. Everybody is on Instagram, which I'm still trying to figure out why, because Instagram doesn't like us. So what are the thoughts there?
I think if there are sponsors involved, I think it probably has to go out on Instagram too, just because that's where the eyes are.
Right,
if we're self-funding, then maybe that's a different story. Or if the match is paying us, then maybe X is in the realm of possibility. But like we kind of already have, all three of us, like some moderately large organic following as it is on Instagram, and being able to combine that with a media account, I think that makes a big difference in terms of what we can get as far as like metrics that advertisers would want to see, or people sponsoring in the role of advertisers.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I don't think it's a great platform for what we're trying to do, but I think unfortunately it's where the eyes are at the moment.
I have so many words.
It sounds like a podcast.
Many of which would probably get me fired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love and despise Instagram. For anything 2A related, it's a nightmare. A good majority of my posts get instantly flagged and restricted, like just off the bat, if it's firearms related. However, interestingly enough, I still get plenty of views on them. So,
right.
Yeah.
There is, I think, a very strong culture of sharing 2A content in that community.
Yeah. X would probably be better as far as more flexibility with what format we can post. But a lot of eyes are on Instagram still, for now at least. So depending on what our goal is and how we are getting funded, it maybe keep going with Instagram. but we probably don't have to make it a massive priority unless we are sponsored for something.
Hmm. I think the other thing about, I guess the other nice thing is like it's not too hard. Like EV Mux, I'm sure could just do them. I'm sure there's just like an X output already, so
Mm-hmm.
we can kind of push people that direction. And then Twitter, it's not hard to have multiple people managing an account. So
Right.
the duplicate sharing is not as bad. There might even be tools to automate Instagram and Twitter sharing at the same time, or X. I don't think I'm ever going to get used to calling it X. So sorry.
Right.
Elon.
I rarely,
Right.
I rarely use it, so
Yeah.
it's all the same. One thing I was curious about was whether we could dial in an actual schedule for posting stuff after the match is done, so people know to expect. Hey, keep looking out for content because we have so much stuff to sift through. It's impossible for us to post it in the weekend. So stay tuned. You will definitely be seeing more.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I still have. Well, I guess I've kind of. I spent about a week cutting together video stages and doing a little bit of deeper analysis and such.
Yeah, I mean, for most photographers, the fastest turnaround I've seen with like a weekend's worth of photos, just photos, is like a business week, and they were really dialing down. They made sure to go through everything and just do a quick, hey, here's a batch edit on a bunch of the ones that I thought looked good, pick out, and then various people would pick out, hey, I really like this photo. Can you do a touch up on it? Yeah, sure, I can do that. Pick out 2 photos. And then another week later, that would be done. With video, it's like 2 weeks of solid editing, but that's for like a 5-minute video. These are 30, 60 seconds. So I can start cranking. It's been a week? I'm cranking out videos and I'm probably going to post 1 or 2 a day. So just for people to actually know ahead of time, watch out for this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just the stuff that I was doing, the short little clips of their stage runs from the live stream cameras that were on the stages, that still takes time. It takes time to go through the video to find them and then cut them out and set them aside and then go back and edit them into something that, is viewable. So yeah, it's video takes forever. So I really like that post-match schedule. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, for the 2 weeks following Area 8, you can keep an eye on such and such Instagram and X to see the videos that we post. The videos we took, we didn't have time to post ahead of time.
Now, I think the thing that I would do differently, since I was up in the studio booth area, whatever you want to call it, I think I would have consolidated the cameras sooner and tried to do everything we could to really strengthen the signal around those cameras from the beginning. So maybe put one on 7, put one on 10, put one in the bus on 5, and then I like how I put one on stage 2, which was the Super Squad's last stage of the match. So I think I would do that sooner and just leave them there. And then maybe the lower section where we had 11, 12, 13, and 14, just use whatever you guys get and then drone footage and leave it at that.
Yeah.
But I thought I don't know how much more I would change in studio other than just workflow, try to be a little bit more steadily productive.
Mm-hmm.
So
just like also kind of knowing what's realistic to achieve over the course of a broadcast day, that helps set the schedule, set the tone for us, I guess. Like if there are 3 or 4 of us, then we can get this much done. We know we can get this much done. So if we shouldn't try and reach too much further than that, because otherwise we'll just we'll hit that task saturation issue again, and then things won't get as done as they could get.
Yeah, and then you get a whole bunch of half-ass things done.
Right.
So,
well, I think now that we've actually done this, we have a much better idea of what is feasible and what's manageable versus what over-promising and under-delivering.
right. Yeah, I mean, we all went into this not knowing what we were going to be able to actually accomplish. So we got that much done anyway.
I think it is amusing, maybe fascinating, silly that all three of us, I don't think, went into this with any real experience at like live video stuff at all. Like Dave, you've done the podcast some, but that's like it's a different beast than than like trying to put on a sporting event. So about
100%.
Like midway through Saturday afternoon, I'm sitting there like looking at the vast array of work in front of me and saying, "Man, like I see why like a sports broadcast team is like 50 people now."
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
they are all doing something.
Yeah. And it's funny when, they go to a commercial break and there's like, 5 or 6 seconds where you see them before it actually goes to the commercial, and they're still sitting there doing stuff, trying to use the commercial break to get stuff done. Plus, I mean, we ran into this in the booth, Jay, where it's hard to do this stuff, talk back and forth and interview people and, click stuff on the screen to make sure we're in the right scene. We got the right stuff going on. There's just so much. Whereas in a professional sporting event, those people are actually on the other side of the cameras
there's a director for that. Yeah.
Yeah. They're doing all that. Like, okay, we're going to scene 4, scene 6, and they're pushing a button and going to that. Whereas you and I are having to do that on the fly. So it's much more complicated.
I do think that's a place where having 2 people in the booth makes a huge difference, because somebody can be talking to a guest or talking to the camera while somebody else is madly trying to edit a scene into readiness to go on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if we were to find a full-time editor, they could also be the part-time director, maybe.
Right. Oh, goodness. Someone who's going to be a jack of all trades, master of none type thing. Knows enough to get by with that stuff. Now, I know that one of the things that we have talked about too was we need to have one media outlet for everything. Like where we all put it together and it all goes out from that one spot. Should we be creating, how do I even want to say it? I don't want to say a website. That's not what I mean, but we need to create something that's an umbrella for everything. I'm just not sure exactly how we want to do that or what that exactly looks like. I haven't figured that out.
Yeah. So like we have been exploiting the power of Instagram collaborations recently, and the good thing about that is that it exploits the followings we already have, right? The building a new account from scratch on somewhere new, I think there's some challenge there just from the like the drive-by visibility aspect.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
But yeah, like I think some kind of central account that that any one of us could post to or manage, that plus collaborations plus sharing to like some centralized maybe X platform to that, trying to like at least figure that strategy out earlier than we did for Area 8, when we were like kind of getting together and we said, okay, we'll put the Instagram stuff mostly on me and we'll do the broadcast on Dave's YouTube. I was like,
right.
Yeah.
So it gets scattered, and then because I think if we can consolidate it down and advertise ahead of time, like, look, this is where it will be. It'll be in this spot, and you can go to this spot and find everything.
Yeah.
Then I think that makes everything
Mhm.
better too, especially for sponsorship or whatever,
Yeah.
where they know that all eyes have to go to that spot to see everything.
We would really have to do a lot of work on the front end just to make sure that actually does take root and produces something.
Hmm. Yeah, 'cause, like I do have
Otherwise, yeah,
like we've got I think some very interesting potentially Instagram numbers now for people, but that may not translate over unless we're still doing cross posting and so forth. And then
mhm.
it's probably like a builds over the course of several times doing this, whatever umbrella account we put together, account or accounts, I guess.
Right.
But
Well, I
the
think,
nice
go ahead.
the nice thing is the platform does allow collaborating together, so
Hmm.
it will show visibility to all our accounts on top of the centralized one.
Yep, and
And
that's the
potentially
that's
we
the
could use the centralized one as the main hub, and then just
Right.
tag the three of us as collaborators along with whoever we highlight, just in case they want to get in on it as well.
Yeah, I agree. And now that now that I know what collaborator is in Instagram, because I'm half retarded, I guess. Uh, yeah, I mean, it is a very nice function. So I guess I need to do a little more research too and see if any of these other social media platforms have anything like that,
yeah.
similar. Um, but I do think it would take, advertising from the match perspective too,
Hmm.
Yes.
for them to
Yeah,
advertise and put out on maybe their Facebook page and their Instagram page that, hey, we're going to have these guys here. This is what they're going to do, and this is where you need to find them. Um, I don't know that we want to talk about future possibilities, so I'm going to talk in code, but the individual that has approached us for later this summer had even mentioned to me that he would be interested in doing something like a business card with a QR code that they give out and could even be in the matchbook where you scan that QR code and that's where all the media is,
Hmm. Yep.
which
I,
I
That'd be
thought
good.
I,
was a pretty unique idea.
I think that has a lot of potential because that saves people trouble of having to individually search each account. It'll just be under a link tree
Mhm.
that everyone sees. Hey, these are the ones to look out for, depending on which platform you're on.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to have to do a little more. I need to do some social. I mean, I had this conversation with my wife. I was like, I only use social media to put something out about, a podcast that's coming out or the statistics that I run about division participation and stuff like that. So that's why I didn't know collaboration came out in 2021 until I started doing research into that. I'm like, holy cow, 3 years ago. Um,
Yeah. I
but there
only.
might be other stuff out there that I am unaware of
Mhm.
that we can link stuff together and broaden everything. Reach anyway.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like a running joke for me that I'm just bad at Instagram. Like there'll be text under other text in my videos, like the UI, and like, well, I'm just
Right.
it's I didn't. Uh, it wasn't my native social media when I was like at peak social media age. So
Yeah, because for me there was no internet at my peak social media age. You sons of beep. so I feel like I'm, even though I use it, I'm not. There are little nuances about it that I need to get better
mhm.
with.
Yeah, the
And I
all kinds of again little things to learn about reach and making
yeah,
sure that the most eyes get on things. Which even if we're not getting paid for it, I think that's a good goal to
yeah,
have people seeing what we're doing.
absolutely. Was there anything else that you guys saw that we could do in the future to improve, whether it's reach or just getting stuff to the viewers?
Uh, Probably informing them just sooner that, hey, we're going to be doing this, and then
Yeah.
because it was still a surprise for a lot of guys whenever they saw me with the camera. They thought I was hired by the Glock team or someone, and I'm like, no, I'm here for the match.
That'd be a good gig, but no. Yeah, the
And there were actually professional photographers out there following some of these people.
mhm.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah,
I saw,
Glock had
I
it.
did, yeah, Glock had somebody. I felt like there was someone else too, though.
I think there was for the Korean team,
Hmm.
possibly.
Okay. I thought I saw something with AMU too, but that may have just been a coincidence. I don't know.
I don't think they had anybody, but I could be wrong.
No, I don't think they did either.
Okay.
Because, yeah, Edens and Hetherington, I think they were pretty much on their own.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Marine team had anybody. They normally don't. So
They've got enough
That's-
people to film themselves, though, too.
yeah, for sure. They had almost a squad of people.
Yeah, I guess
Uh,
one thing.
Imagine the footage they would be able to put together if they actually had someone dedicated to that.
Yeah. And there's maybe the budget there even to make that happen too, but that's another story.
right.
The one thing that I guess, like, another thing that we could have done, or I could have done, I guess, is like a couple of times before the match, Bill asked me, "Is there anything you guys need?" And like materially, I was like, "No, I think we're pretty well set now. We've got like the internet squared away. We've got the tables and such we need." I was like, "Well, we could have actually probably like I could have used that. Well, blast us out on the Greater Pittsburgh and the Area 8 Facebook pages some, and we can bring some more people in who can't make it to the match, get some eyes on the club and some eyes on the competition to see what's going on if they're not here in person."
You know, that brings up another point because as I was leaving, okay, so I went when I literally leaving the range for the last time Sunday evening. I went up to the clubhouse and I let Bill know, you know, I took down their banner, folded it up, put it on the table. I let him know that, you know, we moved the one table we moved with the umbrella. We put it back and stuff. And, you know, I told him I removed the tarp. I did all that stuff. One of the comments he made was he is never on social media.
Yep.
So I think one of the key things there is finding out who does run the social media pages for whether it's the match or the range or whatever it is, and then being able to send them stuff or maybe give them access to something so that, again, it can get pushed out that way as well.
Yeah, I know. So kind of in the aftermath of Area 8, Greater Pittsburgh now has like one of the members there is doing, like, they've got the the GPGC practical shooting account, and somebody's running that who's not Bill, who's a little bit more social media minded. So like that's the kind of contact we need going forward.
And he said, he's like, look, I am too busy, so I'm never on it. And if you watch him through the day, the dude is constantly doing something. So I get it. You know, he's very busy out there at that range. So I totally understand. But yeah, I think that's one of the things going forward is also making that liaison with whomever social media would also be key. Okay. So Jay, I wanted to talk to you specifically about the walkthrough because at Area 8, we had the benefit of you being local, you being able to go out there, and for a couple of days before the match even started, you were able to start the walkthrough process of gaining all the video footage you needed, the written stage briefs and stuff like that. Now, if someone asks us to go somewhere to do this, then we're not going to have that time ahead before the match to be able to do that. So have you considered how you would do that walkthrough differently if you only have a day?
Well, a lot of the footage I ended up using in the end was from Wednesday morning after the Wednesday morning after the range masters finished walking stage, or Thursday afternoon after I finished shooting. So I didn't actually end up using a lot of what I took ahead of time because so many of the stages changed in ways that mattered. I think it's probably plausible just to follow around like the range master crew and get a like when they're doing the final walkthrough and get footage of the stage right after they're done looking at it, and then cut together the stage briefs cut together the written stage brief recordings, that evening. It's possible without a ton of lead time. I think some of it was just kind of like learning what looked good, what was a good way to present a stage.
Okay.
And I think the other part of it, well, if we want the virtual walkthrough, somebody's got to get there a day earlier than everybody else. It's like the extra night at a hotel is either a cost the sponsors, the match has to bear, maybe.
Okay. I mean, I think anytime we can put a walkthrough together, it's great. So
Oh, yeah. I think that may be the feature that the most people came up to me and gave me a thumbs up for, specifically over the course of the weekend. It's like, yeah, I couldn't make it. I couldn't make it out yesterday, but the walkthroughs, I could see all the stages ahead of time. It was great.
Yeah, people were walking up to me asking me to saying thank you, and I was like, no, that was Jay. And so then they were asking me to pass that along a bunch of times.
Yeah, it's I think the feature that's the most useful for people who are actually at the match. Most of them.
Well, when I did I did one for Virginia State last October, and I actually had people comment like I would pay for that. Like someone said, I would pay $20 subscription to be able to see stuff like that. So I know it's very valued. People enjoy it because again, it gives them a little bit more insight before they get there. Or even, you can even look at it like if it's a multiple day thing, like let's take Area 8 weekend. If you shot Saturday morning and Sunday afternoon, or if you were on the Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, you still have Sunday evening. You could literally go back and watch the walkthrough again of the stages you haven't shot yet at your hotel room, or what if you're like, oh shoot, what was, I'm shooting stage 8 tomorrow. I know it's this, but let me go back and look at that walkthrough. I mean, they would have everything they need.
Yeah.
For that. So, because I'm almost wondering, would it be easier if you had, like, if we're both there early, like one person just doing all of the drone footage gathering, and then the other person doing the first person walkthrough stuff, and then just put all that stuff together, create it with the written stage brief.
Yeah. The thing that you get last is usually the written stage brief, I feel like, because you'll have the final walkthrough for the staff to fix any last issues, and then they'll have to go and write the final stage briefings. So that was what I was waiting for Area 8 was that final copy that I ended up changing, I think, once or twice, even after the staff started shooting.
Okay. And I mean, all this stuff takes coordination. So
yeah,
knowing who to talk to get this written stage briefs and everything else. So yeah,
it's
a process.
I ended up getting them when I did because I I saw Dan Click had his laptop in the clubhouse and assumed that's what he was working on. I said, "Hey, can you send me those too?"
Okay. So, and he was the range master. So he had all of that,
Yeah.
not the match director.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And I think that's typically how it would go for like the very final stuff, because the RM is the one who's signed off on all the last minute changes.
Okay. And that does make sense.
Yeah. Oh, the other coordination thing, this one's kind of like a pipe dream, but having like a better sense of like a final squad list, like after people have checked in, getting a printout then.
And I 100% agree. And I'm not sure, would that be the stats person?
Stats might be. I'm not even sure if there's a way to like actually export that off of like, well, maybe off of the master tablet, but I'm not sure what the printing situation is there. I don't know, maybe for the local match that's coming up this weekend, that I'm running the match I'm running. I can look at the tablets and see if anything shows up there.
And that's where, I mean, I have no experience whatsoever with that. So, I'm not sure how the squads that are on Practice Score end up populating into the tablets and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I imagine that the stats person's got, whoever's doing that has to have a final squad listing,
somewhere. Yeah, at least on some tablet. I think the person you mentioned earlier who's approached us about something later this summer might be the person to ask about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that would work then.
I mean, I suppose in several ways be the person to ask about that. But.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to share my screen because I have one last thing that I want to talk to you guys about. Is that it? Nope, that's not it. Is that it? That's it. There we go. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Let me crop it down. This is just booth setup stuff. Now I can make it much bigger so we can all see it well. So one of the things I was thinking about, I've been trying to think of what's the best setup for the booth. And obviously 2 people in a booth like a Sports Center style setup is what we would need. But we had those extra smaller tables. I'm almost wondering, Jay, if we put one of those in between us, it would almost like partition the booth in a way, but we could put the guest at that table. So it would make us focus more towards the middle. So we wouldn't necessarily be looking at the camera, but we could focus the camera on the guest. We could put their microphone on that little table and create almost like a half moon shape by doing that.
Yeah, I think that's got some potential. It does. There's some burden on like getting our mics in the right place, but that's something that we can afford to think about. Like if it's just kind of like our job, and it makes the guest's job easier because they're like talking more toward the camera / us as opposed to having to turn all the way to the side to see either one of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because that's what I was thinking too. Now this might also be where maybe a lavalier style setup for you and me would work, so we could just have a clip on and we, no matter what direction we turned, the microphone's going to be right there at our mouth. Yeah. So that might be a situation where I may look for something that would give us that style setup in the studio to make it a little bit better with the guests. And then, we focus a little bit more on having guests in the studio for interviews, then we would get more use out of it,
Yep. Yeah. The other studio thing I was thinking about, maybe like we wanted to be close to the action for this one. I'm not totally sure that was the right requirement. I like it maybe close to the action, but more enclosed in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
the
there were times where it was hard to hear.
and I think like I remember like listening to the output on the stream. It wasn't too bad there, but like actually in the booth having to shout back and forth, that was the hard part for us because
Yeah, you're not a very loud person, Jay.
no,
And
that's why I
there
have a
were
very
times I
sensitive
was
microphone.
like, what is he saying? Because I do have a hearing deficit because I shot a lot of guns in the military,
Mhm.
and then I've been around sirens and stuff for the last 20 plus years, and I'm still shooting guns. So it's not getting better.
Yeah, I think
Remember, not service related.
Right.
I think like another potential improvement there would be like to get like a headphone splitter for the output, like the microphone monitored port on the mixing board, and then we could have each other like right here, as opposed to having to try and monitor in the stream, which leads to that wonderful problem where you hear yourself about half a second later, and you find yourself stepping over all of your words.
Right. And I'm trying to remember. I've got the audio mixer right here. Oh,
Yep.
Goodness, my knee. I don't know how many headphone jacks this thing really has.
I think it just has the one, but like a 1/4 inch to like a double splitter that gets like us monitoring us at least, and
right.
But like if both of us are listening in to like what's going out of the mixer, then we can fix any issues. The guest doesn't super need to because they're just there for the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we would at the second that there was an issue, we would know. And
exactly. Yeah.
So one of us can just focus on fixing that real quick while the other person continues with the conversation. So yeah, that's not too hard. Well, that was everything that I had for this conversation. Was there anything we missed?
I don't think. Beyond like just the more information we get about the flow of the match, the better. Like the more live the scores, the easier it is to find out where people are. The easier it is to get the people to find the people we want to find. Yeah. Like I was chasing John Leaguer like for the entire a lot of both Saturday and Sunday. Like I'd get to a stage and he had just finished shooting. I'm like, I missed him again. And
then by the time we did manage to catch up for the full stage, it was one that we really couldn't do a whole lot with.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to plan like that. Mm-hmm. I know there were people I wanted to get with the stage cameras, but at the same time, it's hard to recognize some of the people unless they were wearing something extremely identifying. Like there was a female shooter who was wearing a bright yellow jersey. So as soon as I saw her on camera, I was like, oh, okay, I know who that is.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I was like, oh, wait a minute. I recognize that person in the bus because they're like right up in the camera. Speaking of which, did you guys see the video or watch the video of Christian that I posted of him in the bus?
Yep.
That is
Remember,
so
wrong
funny.
answers only.
That is so funny. He just like walked right up and he's just staring at the camera. I had to laugh. Oh, I had to comment. Oh, well, and how are you? Fine, sir. But so it does make it hard to track people, just from a jersey or something like that on a stage too. So if there's a better way we can track these guys so we know, oh, squad 207 is now on stage 9, then we can look at our list and go, okay, there are people on there we want to look at or what. But yeah, tracking and in booth interviews and
probably a way to build an app for that for the tablets. It's like tablet for tablet 207 is now near the beacon for stage 6. So like,
like a GPS tracker.
kind of, yeah.
Oh
Just help
goodness.
think about that some. That could be not too hard and very useful.
I'll leave that up to you. That's like the collaborating thing on Instagram a week ago. I don't know what you're talking about. I could say days ago, but oh. All right. Well, that's all I've got, guys. I don't know. John, did you have anything else?
No, we covered pretty much everything. The only one that I think is worth hammering again is if we could figure out a way to just get all the media into one centralized location for everyone to have eyes on, that'd be fantastic for the future.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's us doing it ourselves, building something to do ourselves, or through the match, or what. So that's
It'll
I
probably
guess,
have to be
next
something we
challenge.
do. It'll probably have to be something we store locally on like just a local LAN versus uploading it and then burning whatever what do you call it? Whatever uplink download speeds that we have, because we're already burning a lot of the bandwidth just trying to stream.
Yeah.
Right.
So something local is going to be the trick.
All right.
Yeah. Oh,
All right then.
That's all I got too.
Okay.
well, a
Well, I
lot to
guess
go
that-
over, and this will be interesting for the next one.
For sure.
For sure. So, well, all right, gentlemen. Thanks for coming on and us talking about this. It's a lot of video to go back through. So I've tried to keep a few notes, but it's still a lot of information. All right. Well, you guys have a good evening.
You too.
You too.
All right.